Hey, this is Shaun with the GoTennis podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And today is 10 minutes of tennis with world-renowned tennis coach, Australian in Puerto Rico, Justin Yeo. And we want to do an Indian Wells recap, talk about the finals, talk about the new wave, because we can connect what's happened here back to Justin's theory of new and younger players having some availability to win a few tournaments now that the big three are gone. Sorry, Novak, you know what I mean. So, Justin, Indian Wells, where do you want to start?
Wow, what a tournament though. Definitely saw some great matches and some great tennis. And the tournament always seems to bring a lot of good spectators, good everything. There were some really cool things that they brought in as well at the start with, just doing some exhibition stuff with the players. So I think probably, the new wave is a great way to talk. And there's so many elements and breakdowns of the new wave that we can talk about with player development and as well as the average Joe, what he can learn about it. Couldn't say average Joe. I'll call them amateurs. How's that?
There you go. So we say the social player.
Our social community player.
Yes.
There's so much to gather from the tournament. I think probably one of the biggest things that both amateur player and juniors can start to watch is I keep talking to players all the time about 3 dimensions and about tactics, and we're really starting to identify the tactics if people can see the data that they're showing on the matches. And we're also seeing so much variety in the game with the different areas, the different speeds, the different spins, the different paces of serve. We're seeing so much difference everywhere that I think that each player now, if we're watching, you could be identifying things that you could improve your game on or make sure you're starting to include it if you're a junior looking for the next 10 years to be pro. So I can elaborate in any of those areas you want me to elaborate.
Well, I like one of the things you mentioned besides variation, which we'll talk about the plan A, plan B, plan C, which is good. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see some of these players take so many years to really get to the top or get to their own peak. We'll call it that. Maybe the top isn't it. But the variation is important because even the social player, especially the social player, needs a plan B. We saw Rune with no plan B against Jack Draper recently. But you also talked about maturity in a conversation you and I had previously, because Rune's got some maturing to do. Is there a maturity in having a plan B? Are those two things connected?
No, I'd probably say more maturing. When we talk about maturing, it's actually playing enough tennis, and being in that spotlight that he was in the final, of being there enough that will then start to feed him how to adjust when he needs to adjust, and also work on he has to go back. He doesn't go back to the drawing board, but he's going to go back and he's going to reanalyze that whole match and start to identify the things that he's going to need, because Draper's not going anywhere now, so he's going to probably see him in more tournaments regularly. So he's going to have to find a way to beat him. Well, it could be just he was left-handed, right? So I mean, a lot of players, when they come up against Rafael Nadal, we go into junior tournaments and we play everybody, and then all of a sudden we play a left-hander, and we're like, what?
Oh no!
I'm used to hitting into the weakness, and now it's the strength, right? So it could be just something as simple as that as well. I'm not with his team, but I would say they're just going to analyze the match and now figure out some of the things that he needs to improve, which will mature his game.
And I'll bet there are a lot of weekend tennis players, social tennis players, that have that same concern with lefties. Now, at the highest level, I'm glad to see the potential that maybe Rune lost that match because Draper is a lefty. It could be that simple. I've always thought that all things being equal, lefty wins. So I think it's an inherent advantage. My opinion doesn't matter to anybody else. It's just me. But let's say those two are equal. They're both 6'4" with two-handed backhands and have similar experience. Now, actually, Rune had a bit more experience in finals and in semifinals than Draper does. But Draper's got that killer mentality. Do we think Rune has that? Is that a difference as well?
No, I mean, in coaching, we always teach that the lefty is a lefty and the righty is a righty. You just have to use the court correctly, you know. So I don't think there's any real advantage, and I'm sure Ruin to this point has played a lot of lefties. So it's not like he couldn't face a lefty, but there's just, you know, the way tactically things could be broken down because of a lefty. But you can do the same thing to him as he's doing to you. So I don't think there's any major advantage of being a lefty, except that lefties tend to have a little more feel, a little more touch than the righties, and we've heard that for years. But on the other hand, your question was, I mean, I think he could have just adjusted a few things, like Alcaraz adjusted against Draper, and come a little further back, then move his way in, and then work on his way of, you know, developing the point more. But overall, they're going to analyze the match, and he'll come back blazing again. And as far as maturity goes too, his maturity, when you hear him talk, you can't relate the two. I'm talking about match maturity versus maturity personality-wise, because personality-wise, he has an incredible mature attitude for his age, and very dedicated and very strong wide mindset. I like his mindset. I think he needs to go out on the court and beat everybody, like he says. I think that's fantastic.
I agree. What about the women?
The juniors hear that too, because that's what they really need.
Yeah.
You need a certain level of arrogance to make it in this sport, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that the little bit of arrogance, people sometimes don't appreciate it. That killer mentality we see, but sometimes it's necessary. So what about the women?
On the women's side, well, that was amazing. We saw someone grit it out and work her way through the game and just keep the balls in play. I mean, yeah, you can see Sabalenka is a very aggressive player, used to, you know, powering people off the court. So what she did is Andreeva just stayed with her. But what people aren't picking up on, and even Andreeva didn't say much about it either. She said, I just hung in there because Sabalenka just, you know, because power, you know, she's so much power. She powers me off the court. And she said she should have hung in there, but she didn't just hang in there. Every time Sabalenka didn't give the ball, Andreeva made her eat it. And that's where I think was the big turnaround in that match, because she literally would take the foot off, try to keep it alive and be defensive. But then as soon as she went on offensive, she boom, and gave it right back at her with the big winners. So I think that was the switch in that match, is that she hung in there till she needed it, and then she would switch gears, the green light would come on and she'd take it. Whereas some players, you know, when they're in that survival mode, I call it amber. They're just, you know, they're hanging in there, waiting for the error. She wasn't sort of doing that. She was waiting for her opportunity to take advantage. And when she did, she took it well. So I thought it was an incredible match to watch. I don't watch a lot of women's matches, but it's been fun seeing the variety, seeing I think you heard me say yesterday, the change of guard. We're going to see a lot of that, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years between the men's and the women's now, which makes tennis very exciting, because you just don't have these 1-2 dominant players that are just, you know, wiping the field. So we're going to see a lot of variety.
And the variety of players is fun, because there have been some complaints on the interwebs of people say, oh, all the experts picked all the wrong people. Okay, well, we can't just pick Novak anymore. We can't just pick Roger and say, I'm going to pick the number 1 seed and assume that's going to play out in that way. In that case, we've got a little bit of a blip on the radar, because the men's tournament was played without the number 1 seed. I think most people probably would have picked Sinner had he been available. I think it was somebody made a comment the other day, well, he was playing Brooksby, and Brooksby has had a little bit of a break from tennis. I'm like, oh, that's a nice way to put it. But in this case, we've got a guy that wasn't there. So we've got a little bit of an asterisk in that conversation, because maybe he is the dominant one. We're not sure at this point, because we can't. But then we've got a 17-year-old who came out and beat the number 2 and the number 1 players in the world on the female side consecutively in a semi and a final. That's a big deal.
Yep, and she won it. She played to win and won it. You know, sometimes you see some of the matches, they sort of don't give enough, or they send a layoff, or they're just too tired by the end. She actually won it, which was impressive. And I mean, remember, Coco Gauff won the same way. She just hung in there, waited for opportunities. So there's definitely something in that. And I definitely, if I'm going to play development players, juniors, anyone listening, parents, I would say you have to be able to hit every grip, every style of technique. You have to learn everything these days to be from junior to a professional later on, just to let you know.
Was it Hingis, Mother, or somebody said every shot from every spot with every spin is necessary?
I mean, we saw Alcaraz hit a complete opposite forehand grip on the pickups on defense that were just so you have to learn as a junior, and I've been doing this in my academies in Australia. You have to learn every grip. You have to learn all the different functions and everything if you're going to really have all the shot making later on. So I highly recommend mixing it up. Don't just stick to forehands, backhands off the baseline. So and then if you're a community player right now, start thinking about how you can vary your game. And I'll say the 3 dimensions: up and down, side to side, forward and back. A lot of people don't use them enough, and I truly believe, if I'm hopefully, most of the American audience are listening, all your sports are tactically driven. So start thinking more tactically when you're playing tennis. You're not just hitting balls. Have a look at what's really hurting your player, and I guarantee you, just by using the 3 dimensions should be enough.
There's your guarantee for the day. Justin, this has been 10 Minutes of Tennis. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.